Psychology of people who don't obsess over sports. Society tells you that if you don't care about sports, something is wrong with you. You're not a real man, you're antisocial. You're missing out on bonding, on culture, on what brings people together. Let me tell you what you actually are. Selective about where you invest your emotional energy. While millions of people are screaming at screens about games that don't affect their lives, you're investing that same passion into things that actually move your life forward. While they're memorizing statistics about strangers playing games, you're building skills, knowledge, or relationships that compound. This isn't superiority, this is different priority allocation. And psychologically, it reveals something profound about how you process meaning, community, and identity. Today, I'm revealing the psychology behind people who don't obsess over sports. Not why they're better or worse, but what their indifference reveals about how their brains assign value, seek connection, and find purpose. The meaning assignment difference. Sports obsession is fundamentally about assigned meaning. You take a group of people you've never met, wearing specific colors, and you care deeply about whether they score more points than another group. There's nothing inherently meaningful about this. The meaning is constructed, agreed upon collectively, and reinforced socially. Research from social psychology shows that humans are meaning-making creatures. We need things to care about. Sports provides ready-made meaning that requires zero personal investment to access. People who don't obsess over sports aren't deficient in their need for meaning. They're selective about where they find it. They need meaning that feels personally relevant, not collectively assigned. Psychological studies on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation show that people with internal locus of control prefer self-generated meaning over socially provided meaning. They don't care about the game because they didn't choose it as meaningful. Society chose it for them. This reveals a psychological pattern: resistance to collective meaning assignment. They question why they should care just because everyone else does. They need personal relevance to invest emotional energy. The Stoics would recognize this immediately. Marcus Aurelius wrote about examining what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Just because something captures everyone's focus doesn't mean it deserves yours. Emotional energy. Conservation. Watching sports is emotionally exhausting. The highs of victory, the lows of defeat, the anxiety during close games, the anger at referees, the despair when your team loses. And none of it matters to your actual life. Your team winning doesn't pay your bills. Their loss doesn't affect your relationships. The outcome is completely disconnected from your reality. People who don't obsess over sports have made a calculated psychological decision. This emotional expenditure doesn't generate returns. Research on emotional regulation shows that people have finite emotional capacity. Every emotion you experience uses psychological resources. People who avoid sports obsession are conserving those resources for things that actually impact their lives. When your team loses and you're genuinely upset, that's real cortisol in your system, real stress response, real emotional energy depleted for something that changed nothing about your actual circumstances. Non-sports people look at this equation and opt out. They're not emotionally numb, they're emotionally strategic. They'll invest deep emotion in their children's achievements, their own goals, their relationships, their creative projects. Things where emotional investment creates actual outcomes. Sports? That's entertainment at best, distraction at worst, not worth the emotional overhead. The tribalism rejection. Sports fandom is tribalism in its purest form. Us versus them. Our team versus their team. Our city versus their city. This taps into ancient psychological mechanisms. Humans evolved in tribes. We're wired to identify with groups and compete with other groups. Sports provides this tribal experience in a supposedly safe context. You get the psychological satisfaction of belonging to something larger than yourself and opposing a clear enemy, all without actual warfare. Research on group identity shows that sports fandom activates the same neural pathways as ethnic or national identity. Your brain processes my team the same way it processes my country or my family. People who don't obsess over sports often have lower need for tribal belonging or higher skepticism of arbitrary group divisions. They see the absurdity of hating strangers because they live in a different city and support a different team. They recognize tribalism as the psychological mechanism it is and consciously reject participating. This doesn't mean they don't belong to communities. They do. But they choose communities based on shared values, shared interests, shared goals, not shared geographic proximity to a sports franchise. Psychological research shows that people with higher analytical thinking scores are less susceptible to tribal thinking. They question the basis of group divisions rather than accepting them automatically. Time allocation consciousness. The average NFL fan spends approximately 3 hours watching a single game. Add pre-game coverage, post-game analysis, sports talk radio, fantasy league management, and you're looking at 5 to 10 hours weekly minimum for serious fans. And that's 260 to 520 hours per year. That's 6 to 13 40-hour work weeks spent consuming sports content. People who don't obsess over sports have done this math and made a choice. What else could I do with 500 hours per year? Read 50 books, learn a language, build a business, master an instrument, develop expertise in an actual skill, spend meaningful time with family. Research on time perception shows that people who consciously allocate their time report higher life satisfaction than those who default into cultural time expenditures. Non-sports people aren't judging sports fans for their choice. They're making a different choice about the finite resource of time. Every hour spent watching sports is an hour not spent on something else. They've decided that something else has higher value to them personally. This reveals a psychological trait, deliberate time consciousness. They think about time as a limited resource to be invested, not an unlimited commodity to be consumed. The vicarious living question. Sports fandom is vicarious achievement. You experience triumph through other people's performance. You feel accomplished when your team wins, despite contributing nothing to that victory. Psychologically, this can be deeply satisfying. Research shows that humans experience genuine pleasure from their team's success, activating reward centers in the brain. But people who don't obsess over sports often have a psychological resistance to vicarious achievement. They want direct agency. They want to be the ones performing, creating, achieving. Watching someone else do something excellent doesn't satisfy their need for accomplishment. They need to do the thing themselves. Studies on achievement motivation show that people with high internal achievement drive get minimal satisfaction from observed achievement. They need personal agency and direct contribution. This explains why non-sports people often spend time on hobbies, skills, and projects. They're getting the achievement satisfaction directly rather than vicariously. They'd rather play recreational sports themselves than watch professionals play. Better to be mediocre at something personally than excellent at watching others. Social connection without sports. The biggest defense of sports obsession is community. Sports brings people together. It creates shared experience. It facilitates male bonding especially. This is true. Sports does create connection. But people who don't obsess over sports have found connection through other channels. They bond over ideas, projects, shared interests, mutual goals. Research on social connection shows that depth of conversation predicts relationship satisfaction more than shared activities. You can have shallow connection over sports or deep connection over anything you both genuinely care about. Non-sports people aren't antisocial. They're selective about the basis of their social connection. They'd rather have 3 friends who share genuine interests than 30 acquaintances who share a team preference. Psychological studies on friendship quality show that people with fewer, deeper friendships report higher life satisfaction than those with many surface-level connections. Sports creates easy, instant connection that requires no vulnerability or depth. Non-sports people are comfortable requiring more from their social connections. The identity independence. Many people derive significant identity from their sports fandom. "I'm a Patriots fan" becomes part of who they are. They wear the jerseys, display the flags, structure their schedules around games. This isn't necessarily unhealthy. Humans need identity components. But people who don't obsess over sports often have strong identity independence. They don't adopt ready-made identity markers. They construct identity through personal choices, achievements, and values. Research on identity formation shows that externally derived identity components, like team affiliation, provide weaker sense of self than internally derived components, like personal values and achievements. Non-sports people are building identity from the inside out, rather than adopting prefabricated identity packages. This requires more psychological work. It's harder to construct your own identity than to adopt one. But it creates stronger, more resilient sense of self. The Stoics emphasize this constantly. Epictetus taught that your identity should come from your character and choices, not from external affiliations you passively adopt. The distraction recognition. Here's the uncomfortable truth that non-sports people often recognize. Sports is brilliant distraction from things that actually matter. Political corruption happens while everyone's focused on the game. Economic inequality grows while we debate draft picks. Climate catastrophe accelerates while we argue about playoff brackets. The Romans understood this. Bread and circuses. Keep the population fed and entertained, and they won't question how they're being governed. People who don't obsess over sports have often recognized this pattern and consciously opted out. They don't want to be distracted. They want to stay focused on things that actually affect their lives and their world. Research on attention and social control shows that populations with high entertainment consumption have lower political engagement and civic participation. This doesn't mean every sports fan is politically disengaged, but it does mean that sports serves a societal function of redirecting attention and energy away from systemic issues. Non-sports people have recognized this and refuse to participate in their own distraction. Different doesn't mean deficient. The psychology of not obsessing over sports isn't about lacking something. It's about prioritizing differently. These aren't people who don't understand community, tribalism, excitement, or passion. They're people who channel those human needs into different outlets. They find community in shared projects. They experience tribalism through ideological alignment. They get excitement from personal challenges. They feel passion for causes or creativity or learning. Same psychological needs, different allocation strategy. Research consistently shows that there's no correlation between sports fandom and overall life satisfaction, achievement, or psychological well-being. It's simply one option among many for meeting fundamental human needs. The Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius had access to the greatest entertainment spectacles in Roman history. Gladiator games, chariot races, theater performances. He wrote about them with detachment. He attended because duty required it, but he didn't let them capture his mind or emotions. He understood that external spectacles, no matter how exciting, don't contribute to character development, wisdom, or genuine fulfillment. People who don't obsess over sports have arrived at the same conclusion without reading philosophy. They've simply observed that watching games doesn't make them better people, doesn't achieve their goals, doesn't create the life they want, so they allocate their finite attention, time, and emotional energy elsewhere. Your choice. This isn't about convincing sports fans to stop watching. If sports brings you genuine joy, connection, and meaning, That's valuable. This is about validating those who don't obsess over sports and explaining the psychology behind that choice. You're not missing out. You're opting out. You're making a deliberate choice about what deserves your attention, time, and emotional investment. That's not deficiency. That's discernment. Now I want to hear from you. Do you obsess over sports or not? If not, what do you invest that energy into instead? If you do, what does it provide that you couldn't get elsewhere? Drop a comment below and let's have an honest conversation. If this video validated your indifference to sports or helped you understand people who don't share your sports passion, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more content, exploring the psychology behind different lifestyle choices and value systems. Share this with someone who doesn't understand why you don't care about sports, or someone who feels alone in their sports indifference. Sometimes understanding the psychology makes differences feel less divisive. Thank you for watching. Your time, attention, and emotional energy are yours to allocate. Sports is one option, not the only option, not the required option, just one option among infinite possibilities. Choose deliberately. I'll see you in the next video.